Guys, I'm just here to introduce myself. I work for Rensselaer. I'm the entrepreneur in residence. Any of you have any idea what that means? Anybody want to take a shot at it?
Take a shot at you guide people along making their own companies, so you should provide feedback in terms of entrepreneurship.
Great. He said I guide, provide feedback, good stuff. Anybody else? I saw a hand over here. All right, RPI brings back alumni like myself that have left and done their own startup companies. I've done more than a handful, 2 successful, a balance or not. You learn from every one of them. But RPI provides a group of us as available resources to you. So if you are interested in starting up a company, I'm over in the Pittsburgh building. And I can give you examples. I can tell you a little bit about my past. You tell me what you want to know before I jump off the stage. You got to raise a hand. Yeah. Go ahead.
Curious about the clause about using significant Rensselaer resources and RPI gaining ownership of your company.
I am funded not by RPI directly, and so I am outside of that clause. So if you work with anybody from the Severino Center, so we're the part of RPI is the Severino Center, but the alumni who set up the Severino Center made it exempt from that clause. So anytime you work with us, you're exempt from that clause. Does that help?
Yeah.
That should be a good thing, right? Okay. You don't want to know about my past or anything like that?
What kind of companies did you have?
Okay. So first company, probably around when you guys were you guys all born in the 1990s?
Yeah.
All right. So in the 1990s, he's laughing because he's heard this pitch before. I was finishing my doctorate down in Washington, D.C., and we tried to start you remember those solar car races that they used to do across the U.S. and across Australia and stuff like that? So I was heading up a group at George Washington University to race a car across the U.S., across Australia, and then across Japan. And so we thought we came up with like 3 or 4 great ideas out of this project. And we tried to commercialize 2 of them. Neither one of them went anywhere, but I learned a ton in the process. The next time I took a shot at a company, how many people are familiar with what a fuel cell is? Do you know there's a company locally doing fuel cell work? There's a company in Latham, New York, Plug Power. I was one of the founders of that. We went public in the end of 2000. So that company is still going. They're doing well. They've just pivoted, and they're in a market where they're providing fuel cells for fork trucks inside. You know, those massive Walmart or Amazon plants where product is just stacked, 20, 30 feet high. They're using the carts there, and they're using them in airport tubs and stuff like that. After that, I did some things for the state government to help them bring startup companies to New York State. And then I got recruited by some of my former board members to come back into. And I did a company in high energy physics. Are you familiar with X-rays? Have you ever had an X-ray? Okay. So what the guy who founded it, the really smart guy that founded it, figured out how to collimate an X-ray, which to date, the lens up there works great for visible light, but there is no lens for X-rays. This guy figured out how to make it. And so that company is called X-Ray Optical Systems, and we just sold that to Danaher Corp 2 years ago this December. Danaher is a massive conglomerate. Have you ever used a Fluke multimeter? That's a Danaher company. It's one of the 400 Danaher companies. And then I've joined a couple of startups since then. I've been working with RPI, and they brought me on this year to be the entrepreneur in residence. So that's the background. But you have the advantage of being able to reach out to somebody like myself, and then if it warrants, I'll work within my contacts and within RPI contacts to help you with your ideas and turn them into companies. Now, the gentleman who stood up here and talked, he has a pretty good idea. He doesn't have the technical know-how. You guys may have the flip side of this. I have a really good idea, but I don't know how to do the business plan that I'm going to need to pitch to venture capitalists. I don't have any idea how to do intellectual property. I don't have any idea how to market this thing. You know, you may have the concept down, but how do I actually do it? You know, it's like knowing how an automatic transmission works and knowing how to replace it. So my job is to help you guys succeed with those things. And that may be pairing you up with students looking for a project in business school as well. Does that help? Any other questions?
Can I ask?
Yes?
I was just going to suggest maybe how best to get in touch with you.
Email. My last name is Cusack. So if you look me up on the directory, I come up, I'm over in the Pittsburgh building. Cusack, just like the actor John Cusack. No relation.
No relation. That was my next question.
Any others? Go ahead.
For your startups, how did you get funding? Was it VC or angels or?
That's a great question, and not everybody asks. Thank you. Did you hear the question? Have you thought about this? How do I get started? Okay, so the very first one started with this. Every credit card I can muster. Okay? And then hitting up friends and family. And if you get, now this is back in 1991, 92. So if you got $50,000 in the bank, you were rolling in dough, right? So if you could get that much in credit, you were good to go. Now, there are two ways to fund a company beyond friends and family. There's external funding. Have you heard of venture capital funding? There's a bunch of steps in between that I can help if you want to spend time with me. I can walk you through. There's friends and family, then there's angels, and then there's individual. So people who were CEO of a company and they've hit 55 and they're done. They're not doing that anymore. But they have a net worth in double-digit millions. And so they're going to invest individually as a venture capitalist. And then there's venture capital firms. All of those I put in one branch of the tree because what do they all want when they invest in your company? A stake, right? Because if they're going to give you, so my first big venture investment came from Detroit Edison. It was $9.5 million in 1997 into Plug Power. We gave up control of the company to them to get that money. So they took 51%, which was fine, okay? Because we're all smart in this room. You did not get to RPI by not being smart. Would you rather have 10 or 20% of something that's worth some tens of millions of dollars? Or would you rather have 100% of something that's worth zero? Think about that for a second. So you'll give up that as long as you protect yourself in the long run. And that's the kind of experience I can share with you. How to protect yourself once you give up portions of the company. Okay? It's not a bad thing. It's just you got to do it right. It's like solving the Rubik's Cube. There's, one way to get it right and a million ways to get it wrong. The other way that doesn't ask you to give up a part of the company is government funding. Have you guys any experience with that? Okay, government funding, non-dilutionary. They don't ask for a share. So let's say you have a project like was just presented to you that has education. You could go hit up New York State Department of Education and the Federal Department of Education for grant money. And they give it out to small businesses. Does anybody have any familiarity with this? No? First phase one is $100 to $150,000. And that's to be spent in 6 months. Now think about that. That's a good amount of money to put 3, 4, 5 people and some equipment full-time on a project. Phase two, how much do you think phase two is worth? It's a big jump. It's $1 million. It's called Small Business Innovation Research Grants. And it's non-dilutionary. Do you know what non-dilutionary means? They don't ask for a share of the company. All the government asks for is the right to use the technology if they find it useful. So you can't charge a usurious fee to them, or you have to make it available to them. But you get to keep all the intellectual property, all of it. So again, folks like myself and other entrepreneurs and residents, we have experience. And again, some of the business students that I work with, or some of the marketing students also have experience with this. And you're gonna want to, if you're really serious about the company, you're gonna want to be best friends with them, because they can be breadwinners for the company. Does that help? Any others? All right. Do you remember my first name? Last name? Good enough. Thanks, guys.